Okay, I'm Mark Tisdall. I grew up in Evanston, Illinois. I've been in the Midwest my entire life. I'm now a resident of Glenview. I spent my career doing social service work, largely in-kind donations and volunteerism, but fundraising and some other things. People would ask sometimes if I ever wanted to start a charity, and my answer was no way. Unfortunately, things changed and circumstances led us to start this foundation.
And I'm Michelle Vacanis, and I'm Mark's wife. I also have done my whole career in nonprofits. So I'm a licensed attorney, and I represented domestic violence and sexual assault victims. Mark and I actually met in grad school doing our master's in nonprofit management, and we stayed friends and were friends for a couple years before our relationship progressed, and we started dating, and then got married in August of 2016. We knew we wanted to start a family. We actually started trying in about May of 2016, and really didn't think that we would have any issues, any problems. There was no reason to suspect we would. And we found ourselves one of the 1 in 8 couples that suffer from infertility, and we went through several treatments. We eventually went to IVF and got pregnant for the first time in April of 2017, and then miscarried, who we call our sweet pea, at about 7 weeks, and that was really devastating. And we kept trying, and it was hard, and we have a house and we intended to fill it with kids, and it was hard, and it's a toll. And then I got pregnant with our daughter Colette in December of 2017, and via IVF again. And that was a tough pregnancy. Morning sickness should not be called morning sickness. It should be called like all day sickness, because everything did. But otherwise, it was a pretty normal pregnancy. And then when I was 21 weeks pregnant, I went to a standard OB appointment, and my blood pressure was 188/110. And my OB sent me to the hospital to get checked out. And Mark and I, she was very calm, which was probably the best thing ever, and said, why don't you guys stop and have dinner, and then go over. And while at dinner and then heading over, we were joking, thinking actually we were going to show up to the hospital and they were going to laugh at us and say, no, it's fine. And it wasn't, and it got worse, and I was hospitalized with severe preeclampsia and told I would be there until I delivered. And so that was the evening of May 8th of 2018, and I wasn't due till September 7th. And so, everything sort of came crashing to a halt.
And then what?
I felt I had talked too long for a little while. So
that's okay.
I think a lot of things were happening, and a lot of doctors and nurses were in and out, and there was a lot of fear, and nobody had really talked to me about what this all meant. And so it was after midnight. Mark had actually gone home to let out our poor dog, who hadn't been out since about 7 o'clock that morning, and this was after midnight, and to get a few things for me. And that was when my OB's partner came in and said, has anyone explained this to you? And I said no, and that's when she told me, you'll be here until you deliver.
And how much time was that then? So, at what point in the pregnancy was
So I was 21 weeks pregnant, so full term 40. It was May 8th, and I wasn't due until September 7th. So we were talking, about 6 months, 5 months, of thinking I was just going to be in the hospital that whole time. And
with a real goal of at least making 24 weeks, which is considered viability, and
right. Right, at the time, the hospital we were at, I think they've since changed it slightly. They did not intervene to do medical interventions until 24 weeks. So if I needed to be delivered before 24 weeks, they wouldn't have done anything. We would have just gotten to hold Colette as she passed away. And so that was always the goal. And, and I think, to receive news like that you don't expect after everything we had been through was just like another hit, after you've been hit and knocked down and gotten back up, umpteen million times, it's another hit. And, I worried about myself, I worried about my health, I worried about Colette's health, I worried about, the less important stuff, like I managed a team. How do I manage a team from the hospital when I wasn't expecting to do it this way? And, my desk is probably a mess. And, what else do I have to do work-wise to, what now seems so mundane? Like, we don't have a nursery. We don't have a crib. We don't have a car seat. All of those kinds of things all come in crashing at the same time. And, so ultimately I was in the hospital a little over 3 weeks, and then a repeat ultrasound showed Colette, who had already been measuring small, didn't grow at all in those 3 weeks, and the doctors recommended delivery with the idea that they could do more interventions on the outside, and some fear that because she wasn't growing, if she stayed in, that we could have been looking at a stillbirth down the road. And so at 24 weeks and 5 days, we made it to 24 weeks. Then Colette was born via emergency C-section, which was a scary encounter and terrifying and all of that. And then she was whisked off straight to NICU, very small. She was just over a pound when she was born. And then lost a little bit of weight, so she ended up under a pound for most of her, if not all of her life. And after 9 days, her lungs just could not handle the first ventilator that they typically put preemies on. Does do damage to the lungs, but it's usually what they can do, and they try to, after a certain period of time, to get them onto a different ventilator that doesn't do as much damage to the lungs. They tried putting Colette on it several times, and she wouldn't last more than a couple minutes. And so they would put her back on it, and eventually that ventilator really did enough damage to her already weak lungs, and so we lost her May 31st of 2018.
And Michelle forgets to mention that the idea of the foundation was born literally 24 or 48 hours after she was hospitalized. I came into the room and she goes, "We have to do something," with the idea that we had gone essentially from a 2-income family to a 1-income family. We could handle it. It was not a burden for us, but we knew that that we are not the only ones who do that, and we are one of the lucky ones who could handle that on a moment's notice, going from 2 incomes to 1. And when people talk about, oh, you can take FMLA, like, yes, we were lucky and had both worked at our jobs for over a year and had FMLA, but it's unpaid. And so basically day 2 in the hospital, Michelle's already planning what turned into the Colette Louise Tisdall Foundation. We didn't expect it to be this way. We thought there was already somebody doing this kind of work. We were wrong.